If you are a wheelchair user and you want to attend a live event, you face a number of challenges, and we've spoken about several of them before on this show, including the problem of able-bodied people taking up the reserved spaces, able-bodied people using the wheelchair-friendly toilets when they had so many other options available to them. But bravo to our listener, Nicky Abdinor, who drew our attention to the fact that they're also being charged premium prices with no option but to pay the highest rate. Nicky, of course, a well-known disability activist. We've had her on the show before. She's absolutely passionate about promoting inclusivity and fairness. And unfortunately, she's traveling today, so she couldn't join us in person. But we are definitely going to send her a podcast of this conversation, because the question she brought to us last week has actually led to policy change, which is going to positively impact not just her concert experience, but everyone else's too. It's such a win. Wendy, tell us the background.
It's such a feel-good story. So Nicky mailed us last week about her experience of attempting to book seats for Trevor Noah's show at Grand West, which begins the end of August and goes into early September. And this is what she wrote. Any chance you can approach Grand West regarding disabled seating for shows? Wheelchair seats, naturally in the prime spots, that would be right up front, are sold at the highest prices for shows. Previously, Greenpoint Stadium offered a free companion seat for wheelchair users, as well as varied ticket prices depending on seat location. But at Grand West, there are no considerations for wheelchair users. For example, Trevor Noah is advertising seats priced from 400 Rand. I had a look, and the wheelchair seats are 1,150 Rand. I was amazed to find that New York Broadway shows offered wheelchair seats at lower prices, even when the seats were right up front. This seems fair, as wheelchair users don't have many options. Many disabled people need a companion for assistance, Nicky said. 1,150 Rand times 2 for Trevor Noah, no matter how much we love him, is unaffordable to most. And how right she is.
Absolutely. So we initially reached out to Grand West for comment, but Wendy, they quickly replied saying they are not actually the ones who decide on the ticket prices.
Yeah, exactly. They told us that event organizers and show promoters own these shows. They just provide the venue, but it's the organizers who effectively own the space once they hire it from Grand West. So it is them who, the organizers that is, who determine the layout of seating and who calculate ticket prices based on their own cost structure. I was told, whilst we do make every effort to encourage organisers and promoters to provide the disabled seating at the lowest ticket price tier, Grand West said, we are ultimately not in control of the final decision that they make.
And I will say thank you to Grand West, who responded very quickly when we took this to them. So, Wendy, we then followed the trail one step further to the organisers of the particular event that Nicky flagged, the Trevor Noah show. You not only got a response, you got a commitment to real change, didn't you?
I did. This is the feel-good part. Trevor Noah tour producer Ryan Hardnoth got back to us to say wheelchair accessible locations are determined by the venues. You see that there's a bit of a mismatch. I
guess what he means is where we can put them is a factor of the layout of the venue, perhaps, rather than batting it backwards and forwards. But I take that point. So if the stadium or the show venue has a certain layout, that will determine where they go. But
they are determined by the logistical realities, I suppose. And in Cape Town, said Ryan, those are in the premium block of tickets, hence the price. We recognise that for wheelchair users, having a companion for assistance is not a choice for most, rather a necessity. Our system did not fairly account for that, so we have made the following changes to remedy this. 1, we have contacted all our wheelchair access ticket buyers and offered a rebate on their companion for assistance tickets. We've amended the system to make sure that we're not charging for the companion for assistance tickets in the wheelchair seating locations moving forward. And these changes are not just for the concerts in Cape Town, but all over the country.
So bravo, Nicky, for speaking up, and bravo, Wendy. I mean, what a fantastic outcome.
It is.
And wonderful that it's being applied retrospectively, that they're going back to people who've already bought their tickets to say, we're sorry, we feel you've been unfairly charged and we're going to refund you.
Exactly. I wasn't quite sure what he meant by a rebate, whether he meant a part refund or a full one. So I went back to ask, and the answer was the rebate is for the full ticket price, and moving forward, the wheelchair accessible tickets and companion tickets will be half of their price, meaning a wheelchair user can purchase a ticket for themselves and a companion for the cost of one ticket for that block. And then I asked him how many wheelchair users, as a matter of interest, had booked so far for the Noah concerts. And when I left to drive here, he hadn't answered yet. He said he's going to go to Cricket and look for the breakdown, but I see he hasn't got back to me yet. So I'll keep checking. Okay. I just thought it was interesting to know, how many people we're looking at here who would benefit. Yes.
Well, more importantly, how many people looked at it and went, I can't afford two.
The thing, maybe,
but could afford one and might now be able to go to that concert because of this change of policy. So, Nicky, well done indeed. Thank you very much for alerting us. And Wendy, thanks for following the trail all the way to the outcome that we got. I thought it would be interesting to compare this situation to international practice in this regard. And Wendy, I'm sorry, I know I gave you homework, but I did ask you to go and have a look and find out what you could about how disabled seating is handled on the West End and Broadway. What did you find out?
Yes, so I had a quick look. There is quite a lot on offer to support wheelchair users in accessing the theatre and all sorts of disabilities, actually, but let's stick to the wheelchair users. The New York City Theatre Development Fund offers an accessibility membership for people with disabilities. Membership is free with proof of disability, and members are eligible for substantial discounts on tickets, including wheelchair accessible seats. Most Broadway musical theatres feature two different kinds of accessible seating: wheelchair seats and transfer arm seats. So for people who want to get out of their seats,
out of the wheelchair into a seat.
Yes.
Okay.
For the wheelchair seating, obviously you expect it to stay in your wheelchair, and for your transfer arm seating, you can get into the theatre seat, and then your wheelchair will be moved to another location. I think it was quite nice for people to have that choice.
Yeah.
So you can usually purchase one or two companion seats, but if you contact the box office, they are often able to seat the rest of your party nearby. There is an ongoing accessibility issue with theatres in general, which isn't limited to Broadway, and I think they're talking there about the physical accessibility of getting
into the theatres
and using the toilets and all of those things.
So it's a fair point, Wendy, especially when you think a lot of these are located in old historic buildings.
Yes.
I had the experience of working in an old historic building more than a decade ago, and I remember going through this process with it was the MAP seat or whoever they were at the time, asking about access for disabled people working in our building. And I had to say to them, I would love to be able to hire a news reporter who is in a wheelchair. There's no reason they couldn't do the job, but there's physically no way to get them to our studio on the third floor because the lift was so old and so tiny that you could literally fit one person standing in it. You could never have fit a wheelchair into it.
That's a really tiny lift.
Yeah, and that was an old building. I think this is probably things like that, factors like that might still be an issue in accessing an older building.
They weren't thinking of these sorts of things.
So of course by now you would hope everyone's starting to retrofit and make adjustments where possible, but it's going to vary a lot from one theatre to another, I would imagine.
Yeah. In terms of where they sit, because this was the issue began as the issue here. I mean, Nicky's saying that she only had the option of sitting right up front.
I don't need to be in the front row.
You don't need to be in the front row. Yeah. So in most theatres on Broadway, you'll sit towards the back of the orchestra section. In some, you'll be in the middle or to one side. Not all Broadway theatres accommodate wheelchair users in the front row. Many offer discounted tickets for audience members with access requirements, and companions attend free of charge. In London's West End, a drawback of having venues, as you've said, Pippa, that can be up to 400 years old is that disabled access options are often very limited. But most London theatres offer discount tickets for an access patron and their companion.
Okay, so internationally the movement is towards flexibility, fairness, inclusivity, and recognizing that it's not a choice to bring a friend along for the concert, but that it is physically needing help from that person. So really nice to see the outcome here, really nice of this particular show producer to respond so immediately and emphatically and saying, you're absolutely right, it's not fair and we'll fix it. Wendy, now the challenge is, of course, is to get every other show organizer to follow suit.
Exactly, but it's a lovely precedent, don't you think?
It really is, and all I can say is please share this podcast and congratulate the Trevor Noah Show for doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
Maybe that applies pressure on everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah, well done indeed. Thanks so much. And again, Nicky Abdinor, thank you so much for raising the topic with us.
Lunch with Pippa Hudson
on CapeTalk.